was that show Breaking Bad about? What drug was that? Heroin?
Yeah.
Crack?
I guess. I don't know.
I didn't even know anything about it till I watched that movie. So
Are we good? We're rolling?
now that you have the meth conversation.
Yeah, that could be our hot intro right there. Charles Shackelford. Said that correctly, yeah. Humble mechanic. Dude, thanks
Indeed.
for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here. You have got me in one of my absolute favorite places in the entire world, so it doesn't take a whole lot of sweet talking to get me out here.
Shall we say where we are?
We should. I'm going to let you say where we
All
are.
right, well, we're at Audi Club Nationals 2023. Yeah, we're broadcasting live today, so most people are out today we're at Fontana Village in North Carolina.
Yeah, we are in North Carolina.
We're close to
technically.
Tennessee,
We
though.
are just a few miles from the Tennessee border.
And very close to Tail of the Dragon. I hear it's like right out. I got here last night.
Yeah, not far.
Yeah.
A very fun drive from right here to Tail of the Dragon. Some may say a more fun drive than the Dragon itself. So
Is that a? We'll jump around. I'll tell you more about where we are in a minute. But like, is that more because since it's my first time here, is it because of the traffic or is it because the curves are actually better up here?
So the road from here to Tail of the Dragon is called Hellbender, and
Yeah.
you can actually carry a bit more speed for longer periods of time. So if you have a car that only goes fast straight, it's great for you. But the traffic is also a big part of it because traffic on the Dragon, especially during the weekend,
right?
It gets busy, and we're in an awesome time of year, so I suspect traffic this weekend on Saturday will be pretty legit. So get up early and go.
So presently Friday. So if I'm going to go hit it, I should do today.
Yeah,
probably,
you should stop recording this and go rip, and then we'll come back.
See you guys later. No. So this is Nationals 2023. You might hear exhaust because we're here on the front porch. Most of the attendees here have gone out to do some drives today. Yeah, we do this once a year. We change locations. We've done it, all over Atlanta, West Coast, Pacific Northwest was recent, DC was recent, and so normally a chapter will host, and Carolina's stepped up and was like, "We do this event anyway. It's awesome.
Yep,
you should do it." So, but let's get back to the driving.
Yep.
Like, Tail of the Dragon is the one that
is the iconic,
right.
One of the top
list.
10 roads to drive in America. What is it? 318 curves and 11 miles. It can be very intense.
318.
318.
And how long does that take if you're not in traffic? How long is it?
If you're not in traffic, 30 minutes maybe.
Okay.
The speed limit for most of the Dragon is 30 miles an hour. So officially, I only go maximum 30 miles per hour at every point at the most. Off the record, there are some places where you can go a little bit faster, and then there's some places where you do have to.
People would,
if you're a professional driver and it is a closed course at the time you're driving on it, you could probably go faster than that. If not, obey all the speed limits and don't fly off a mountain.
Do you know history here? Like I know this is big with bikers too. Did it start with bikers or?
I don't know. I assume so. Like that's the vibe that it gets. And if you go to the Tail of the Dragon store, there's a tree where bikers that wreck, they hang parts of their bikes as like a memorial, so to say. But look, it's a very cool place. It's a very fun road, especially when you can get out here where there's not a ton of traffic. That said, you're in the mountains, so 0 cell service, 0 GPS. It can be very, very dangerous up here.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're like dead zone. We're here. There's internet here at the Fontana
Village and Resort, I think, is the official name.
And is this the events hall?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the only time I think my signal died I was coming in last night. It was a couple miles from here at least, and good to just separate from the web.
It's awesome. And when I tell people that plan on coming up here maybe for other events, I'm like, hey, there's no cell phone service at all, and the Wi-Fi is terrible. Really, really, 1996 terrible.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes they don't believe me, and they're like, oh, I don't have any service. I'm like,
yeah.
No kidding.
Surprise.
Yeah, you're not going to be flipping through TikTok while you're hanging out here because they don't have the bandwidth for that.
Yeah. All right, but there are other places around here to go too, right? I heard I've done none of these. I'm a noob down this way. So Charles Skyway.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
You are very close. So the Tail of the Dragon is the one everybody knows about, right? And I think that is the thing that draws the most amount of people here.
Yeah.
However, from I'm not that local. I live in North Carolina, but I'm on the other side of the state, so it's about a 6-hour drive for me to get here. People that live around here and come here often will tell you that there are far better roads to drive on than Tail of the Dragon. But you're here, you got to do it. Like you mentioned before, it's a bucket list road, like Angeles Crest in LA or near LA or whatever. It's one of those kind of things. So you can come here, you can do the Dragon. Millions of other roads to drive on that are equally, if not more, awesome. Cool scenery. Bridal Falls is awesome, and that's, I don't know, an hour or so from here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can really come out and kind of choose the adventure you want to have. Do you want a little bit more speed, longer sweepy stuff, or do you want to get technical and rip on the Dragon?
Yeah. Before we get too far into this, you're a relatively you're a known quantity in a space outside the Audi space, and some people may know who you are, but I'd love to kind of introduce you more for those who don't.
For sure. So going back to sort of my entrance into this world, I spent 15 years at a VW dealership as a technician, started at the bottom, like the lowest experience you could possibly have and still get a job. That was me. Worked my way up.
Which dealer?
Leaf, Volkswagen in Cary, North Carolina.
Okay.
Super great dealer.
Yeah.
Had a really, really awesome company that I worked for, and did all the roles in the shop, right? From the new guy to the shop foreman. Started right when the Touareg, Phaeton, and R32 launched.
Oh, great era.
So it was a good time to be a new technician because I got a very much trial by fire with learning all that new stuff. And it was interesting because all the older guys, like nobody wanted to work on this new stuff, new from back then.
Right.
And I didn't realize you weren't supposed to want to work on that. So I was like, I'll do it. And quickly got put as the Touareg Phaeton guy. So for 2 years, I was pretty much the only one working on Touaregs in the shop. A blessing for sure, looking back on it now. Worked there for, about 15 years. Back in like 14, I started making videos on repairing VWs. And so 2017, I left the dealership to kind of do that full time. I do some other stuff too.
You had set up your own YouTube channel when you started doing this?
Yep.
Okay.
Everything
from the beginning.
From the beginning, yep. I actually, the whole way that even started was I was trying to do some of that for the dealer because, think back to 2011 internet, the only automotive stuff was like dealers trying to sell cars with stupid discounts that nobody gave a crap about. And I'm like, hey, there's way cooler stuff happening in the shop. So we went through this whole thing. It lasted like 2 weeks, and then they said, we're going to hire a company, which worked out real great for me because, look, as a technician, it seemed like people would look down on me because I fix cars for a living, right? And I think that's changed a lot, but it's still there, right? You're a blue-collar dude. You're not worthy because you don't wear a white shirt and you didn't, like, graduate college with a master's degree, so you're an idiot.
Right.
Not true. I don't believe that, but that was the mindset. And so in addition to that, everybody has a bad mechanic story, right? Everyone, and if you don't, the one person in your orbit will have one. And that was such a different thing that I experienced because the shop I worked at was great. Like, most of us really cared about our customers. We wanted to do a good job. We wanted to fix your car. Sometimes we made mistakes. Sometimes things didn't shake out. But overall, it was a place that I felt like we were really doing the right things for customers. And even though the dealership decided they didn't want to tell that story, it was important to me to tell that story. So that's kind of how it all started. Cool. And, has kind of pivoted around a little bit there, but that's still sort of the core of my channel and the videos that I make is that, I know you have a bad mechanic story. The industry has earned its very bad reputation. And that said, there's a lot of people that are working hard every day to change that and that do care and that do a good job for their customers.
Is that where the humble part of this comes from, like the humility in that? Or
No. So as a very young technician, I had some really great mentors that I'm very thankful that we may not have seen eye to eye on everything, but they were good for me. And my team leader, Robert, he comes to me, he's like, hey man, like you're going to be a good tech. Like I can tell you work hard and you're smart. He's like, but just about that time where you're feeling good, a car's going to come in and serve you a piece of humble pie. And I was like, yeah, whatever, old man, because I'm like 23 and he's, like 50 or whatever.
Right.
But
whatever,
the
old bravado
man.
that only a 20-something.
100, the stupidity, bravado, whatever you want to call it.
I was there.
Dude, not a week later, that car came, and it was an '06 Touareg, I think, that ate my lunch for 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
Because the seat module was randomly pulling the CAN bus down. Sorry if this is like a little nerdier than. So the seat module.
They can fast forward.
Yeah, just skip ahead. It's fine. It'll get better.
Yeah.
the seat modules bring down the CAN bus intermittently.
Yeah.
So you could start the car, drive 20 feet, and the alarm would start going off as if you like set the immobilizer off.
Right.
So,
How random
just
is that?
way random. We ended up, the only way we found it was we had to go through and disconnect everything in the car until we found the module pulling everything down.
Who was paying for the hourly rate on that?
It was warranty, thankfully.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I made my money eventually. It just took, I went 2 weeks with making no money.
Yeah, Volkswagen did.
Yeah,
But I guess they figured it out for the next one, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully. I was just done with it at that point. So yeah, that's more where that came from. Of just like, man, that moment you get a bit of confidence is when the universe decides to just correct you back into your place. Cool. A dangerous thing out here, as I kind of think about that. But yeah, so 2017, left my dealership job. I was making videos full time, teaching VW Audi repair to independent shops. Dabbled a little bit in the Audi world because a lot of that stuff, especially Mark 1 TT, Mark 4, GTI, they're essentially the same car, right? The first Audi I bought was a B8 S4 DSG. It was a 2010 with like 212,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
People don't believe that this is actually what I paid for it. I paid $1,500 for the car. It did run, but it's a B8 with a DSG. So pulled the trans, clutch packs are smoked, bought a $600 parts transmission, swapped clutch packs, and dual pulleyed it and ran like 13 flat in a quarter mile. And then I have since lifted it on Q5 suspension.
So this is the kind of safaried one. If people check out the Humble Mechanic YouTube channel, this is a regular.
It's the one with the big stupid spoiler and the full livery on it and everything. It's a fun car. I don't know how it hasn't blown up yet.
Yeah.
Like, I rallycrossed it, and that's kind of what I ended up wanting of that car.
Okay.
It's also since been manual swapped. But I wanted something cool that I could rallycross and not tear up like one of my nicer cars. And, man, I thought for sure the last time I went we were going to be pushing it on the trailer, but not only did I not have to do that, I won my class, set fastest time of the day. I mean, let's be honest, the car was way faster than any of the other Subarus or whatever that were there. Now it's just a car that I have no problem beating the hell out of.
B8?
Yeah.
Pre-facelift, post-facelift?
So 2010.
They still had, is it a sport diff car?
It is a sport diff car.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So imagine buying a sport diff
and that's held up?
S4 for $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unless you had the VIN and run it, there's really no great way to know if you have a sport diff car. So it's sort of like that extra, little extra whatever. But like a lot of dealers don't really know.
No, clueless. So that car was pretty fun. I still have it. The next Audi I bought was a Mark 1 TT. Dude, the Mark 1 is still how you guys refer to the TT. I'm more in the VW space, so forgive me if I get something a little bit wrong.
Yeah, Audis are Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 2. They don't really go along like the Volkswagen Mark 4, all those. So for those who don't, right, like the fourth generation A chassis from Volkswagen Group is Mark 4 Golf because they've always made a Golf on that chassis, and then the Mark 1 TT is that era car too.
Perfect. So this dude, it was like a friend of a friend, ended up with that. It's an 01 TT. I think it's a 5-speed Quattro 1.8.
Okay. The 225.
And not a 225.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So he apparently wanted to modify his car. This was like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So pulls the engine out, gets it overboard 0.5 millimeter, rebuilding the engine, breaks a piston ring, putting the pistons in, gets freaked out or over the... I mean, you guys know how projects go, right? Like, you're into it and then you're out. The car sat in his garage for 3 years, just completely disassembled. He sold his house.
Oh, gosh.
And had to move.
So
I bought the car. I bought boxes of parts because nothing was put together. But he had bought all the right stuff, right? Upgraded turbo, charged cooler, forged rods, forged pistons for $1,300. And I actually just got that car running 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it runs. I drove it 25 feet, and now I'll have to circle back to it because there's a bunch of odds and ends.
No safari plans for that one.
No safari plans for that one. I'm gonna sell that one. It was one of those deals where it's like, man, I can $1,300. I'll slap this car together. I'll make $5,000 on it. It'll be a quick flip. And that was 3 years ago.
TT Mark 1's an interesting place in the market right now, where like it's like. And on one hand, it's underneath it's Mark IV, which is as the transverse cars go, isn't necessarily I don't know, in my opinion, the best, but it's not bad. Like it's competent, and it's such that for me, that car is such an iconic thing of that era that I think they're starting to have their day, right? Like they're starting to
maybe my procrastination is going to pay off.
Yeah, when your buddy's storing it until he sold his house. Yeah, because probably when he got it, or even you got it, but yeah, you're seeing them go up and bring a trailer. They overbuilt. That's like, well, this period that you go to Volkswagen with what Phaeton and Touareg and Passat W8s, all this kooky stuff, VR5s in Germany. Like Audi is also doing some weird stuff. This is like peak Piek.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Say that one time slow.
But like Ferdinand Piek, who was the guy who was such an engineer and pushed for such. They pushed their envelope to do things like the W8 or the Touareg, which the first gen was a really, really capable, remarkable all-wheel drive system, so TT is so overbuilt on the inside. Like materially, it was so costly for them to make that car. Whereas you could say like it's just a Golf, and in some ways it is. But you look at by that I mean the underpinnings are it's a shorter wheelbase, but it's
different, but it's. Right. It's similar.
But it's not like the later, like Mark II and Mark III. I don't know if you know this. Mark II and Mark III are like an aluminum space frame with like a steel subframe in the back. So like it's almost like A8-ish chassis, but even though it's still the transverse A component set. But yeah, so that first TT doesn't have that, but it has this charm. I think that like the later cars haven't really earned yet in being old, right? Like.
It still feels in that vintage, and on the VW side maybe more so, it still feels like that's a German car in the U.S., not a car built for the U.S.
Right.
And that's kind of where we are today, where the cars are much more Americanized, right? You look at like...
Particularly a Volkswagen.
100%. I mean, I think of my wife who has a 2015 Touareg TDI, and I recently got an 06 Touareg, so the 06 is the first gen Touareg, and this is just my favorite thing about this car. The 15 is clearly built for American market. The cup holders in the door pockets, cup holders here, a million cup holders. The 06 is not. It is very much a German. You can
Where are the cup holders in that first gen?
They were just right here.
Okay.
Nothing in the door pockets, and then the push button ones that pop out in the rear armrest.
Was it that Mark IV Golf?
Same cup holder. The ones above the radio.
Cup holder. Like you watch components, that's in like A8 and stuff. Like it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
They use that part everywhere.
I pulled out of that S4 I mentioned. I pulled it out of the rear armrest of the S4 and fit it in my Mark IV R32 behind the brushed aluminum plate. So when you tap the brushed aluminum, it pops out.
That's cool.
It's a little dodgy, like it doesn't work super great, but it's great for holding my phone.
That's some OEM plus love. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the nerdy things that we all I think like to get into.
Well, this is the thing when you say, because like I'm sure there might be some people out here like they're not the same, and they aren't. We can go in. I mean, I could spend all day going into the nuances, but like one of the things that I think got us all into this, I started out as a VW kid, as Scirocco's and whatever, but like. It's the Lego component. Like OEM Plus is this thing where I guess it's bigger than Volkswagen Group stuff now, but like I know it started on Vortex. That's where we kind of keyed the term, and like it was like it's just allowing you to take that component like that A8 back or 8. This came out of your S4, right? But that backseat cup holder and put it in a Golf, and it's something as I don't know, whatever, inane as a cup holder, but you do those little things, and like the super nerds, like we all are, be like, oh, you did, and it allowed us to kind of do it in a way that's so personalized in us. I don't know.
And it's even better now with the MQB platforms where it's legit plug and play, and you can take that nice aluminum subframe out of RS3 and drop it in a Golf R, and you've saved whatever 7 pounds or something off the front end. So.
Do you know? Is that I've always wondered? I'm gonna. Not because you mentioned the RS3. Is that rear diff the same one that's in the Golf?
So I have heard yes.
Yeah.
And I've heard
different programming.
No. I don't know. It is.
Would they have
so the whole cassette, if you unbolt the whole cassette, meaning the whole rear subframe and suspension, minus I think the shock absorbers, drop that out, slide it over, you bolt right up into a Golf R. I have heard the guys that are doing the Daza swaps will also swap the diff because there's question on gear ratioing or something like that. It's one of those voodoo-y things where unless you can find...
I'm so sorry. Where were we?
We were talking about the rear cassettes from gear ratios.
Yeah.
So I've heard both, right? I've heard it's the same. I've heard that it's different. I have yet to do that in depth of research, and I think a lot of the guys where this is coming from is the Golf R guys doing Daza swaps.
Right.
Is most of them have the whole car anyway, so they're like, let me not chance it,
Right.
and I'll just swap it over. So I'm sure someone that's listening or watching will correct us if we are wrong.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine. I'm going to make a giant assumption here, but they wouldn't develop a whole other differential for. Like, it's all about components.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's the whole point of
software.
MQB, right? Is
Yeah,
that
maybe
it's all
clutch.
the same.
It's hydraulic clutch, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't imagine they would. To me, it makes no sense. The hard parts would be different.
Yeah, maybe clutch,
but software would make sense.
Yeah.
But that, who cares about that? That's fixable anyway. But we have so much of that now that's just literally the same, and
Right.
I think it's awesome. It makes those Daza swaps easier
for the Audi community, or maybe you. That's the other thing. When the TT current gen, so Mark III TT launched, I did the long lead back in the day, and this is like pre Audi Club, but they had a manual TTS, and then they never had a manual A3 or S3, but like that's part of me would love to see, especially now as we're like moving into this EV age and whatever else, like to see a manual swap TT Mark III. I think, again, it's not the RS, but like TTS is a really good little car.
TTS is a great car.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that 6-speed is probably the GTI or Golf 6-speed.
It's gonna be the same transmission.
Yeah.
I mean, they
TCU maybe get it whatever out of Europe, but like
maybe
it was
I
OE.
mean,
Like
a lot of this stuff can be overcome with tuning companies and software or firmware or whatever. I mean, that's above my pay grade.
No,
I got a guy for that. So when I
Right.
need that, I got
It's
the
nice to have a
guy.
guy.
But, I mean, you don't have to be that smart when you got a guy for the things. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty fortunate for that. But it's cool. It's cool that like back then you could do those little pokey things that just kind of set your car subtly apart from someone else, whether it's dynamic turn signals or whatever.
Yeah, it could be cup holders or dynamic turn signals, but it can also be a Daza swap.
It can also be a
Golf R,
Daza swap.
right? Like, and that's what I love about the nature of it. And that era too, you had, it was actually a throwback, I guess, if you will. Like the B5 Passat was going to the longitudinal platform again, right? So like you had them working with the Audi stuff, whether it was like the Quantum Synchro wagon, right? Like back in the day, they're going back to that, and you still had this like even more rich sharing then that you could, on one hand, whatever, it was a cheap A4, if you will, but like but I don't know, for the nerd in me that likes to see people doing cool things that the factory never did.
And that Passat was the best Passat ever made, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the W8 was an 8-cylinder that had 280 horsepower, but they sounded great.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, a fun car to drive, especially with a 6-speed manual in a wagon.
Did I hear that block did that have something to do with the Bugatti block? Do you know?
Probably, because the Bugatti's a W16.
Yeah.
And then the Phaeton had the W12. I think the A8L had a W12 too.
Did I just read something recently? There was like a VR10, like the VR.
Something happened where someone found one or found a block, I think is what it was.
Yeah. Piak, man. Peak Piak.
And that's just the stuff that has gotten out. Right. Imagine what's hidden away in the basement.
The stuff I've heard. Well, at Audi Tradition, they have like there are a couple Ursula Piak cars, his wife, or one of his wives, but his wife at the end of his life as well. And there's like a V8 wagon. There's like an RS2 sedan. That like Piak was. I would love to see his garage, right? Like the weirdo stuff. I heard that he had. This is getting really nerdy. When they did, Audi didn't have Audi Union race cars. Like there were very few that existed because they all went behind the Eastern Bloc after the war. So they hired this company in the UK, Crossweight and Gardner, and they make these painstaking replicas from like blueprints and what components they still had and the cars that they were able to get out of Russia. And like Piak had, as I understand it, he had made a Type A like for himself.
Yeah,
like
that's so awesome.
But you could be that level of, I don't know, like both nerd, but like every asset available to you. And by the way,
that's like everybody's dream come true, right?
Yeah,
to have that access.
Yeah.
And how many of the enthusiasts in our world would cut their right leg off to be able to, maybe their left leg, I don't know.
Yeah, just to have those resources. If I can call. Yeah, anyway.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, all right. So we wandered, dude. But so back to your channel. This is what? Now you've got the channel up and running, and
that was 7 years ago that I left the dealership to do that full time. Since then, it's been just a wild ride of getting to participate in crazy cool stuff. going to cool events. One of my favorite events of the year actually takes place here. It's called Wookiees in the Woods. So similar to what we're doing here with the Audi Club, but it's centered around R32s, Golf Rs. But it's also an event that, like, the rule is as long as you're not a poorly behaving individual, there's different words that we use for it, but I'm not sure, like, the swear tone for this podcast. So
I can make it.
We'll keep it clean.
All right.
You can fill in your own swears.
Yeah.
As long as you're not an a-hole, you're more than welcome. So you'll see a Lamborghini zoom by, and then a completely stock Mark IV R32 roll by, and then an 800 horsepower Golf R roll by, all in the same cruise group. And it's such a cool event. Someone put it really, really well. It's like being an adult and going to summer camp with all your car friends.
So Wookiees in the Woods starts as like just a gathering. I think you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
I've always known of it, but you're more intimate.
Allegedly, as tale will tell.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, like that. In the like 08, 09 era, a group of dudes from Vortex decided to just come down here and then like somehow mated with another group, and it became their thing in April. And then they did it, and then it kind of like fizzled out a little bit, but a couple of those people still came. I started coming pretty recently in 2015 or 16. It must have been 2016. And even in 2016 to this past year, the event has exploded.
Continues to grow.
It's wild. Like, you used to be able to call 2 weeks before and get a room here at Fontana. I book my room for the next year when I check in for the current year.
Honorary Car Week style.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not getting a spot.
All right. So Wookiees is a reference to the sound of VR6 narrow angle.
Yep.
How much do we do basics here?
Oh, 15 degree
15 degree
or 10.6
under
degree.
A single head. Yep. VR6 so it could fit transversely, but it went in the. I mean, R32 is probably the car that inspired that event, but it's in TT, the Mark 1 TT and Mark 2 TT, A3. And it sounds Wookiee it sounds like Chewbacca, right? Like when it's on throttle, and so that's where it comes from. But now you're saying Golf Rs and Lamborghinis. It sounds like maybe not so religiously Wookiees.
No, and it kind of couldn't be because there's only 10,000 total of those cars from the VW side that were ever made, right? You had the Mark IV R32 at 5 and the Mark V R32 at 5, and that was it. Yeah. And so if you don't include the rest of the Golf R community, are you really being like this really cool and inclusive group?
Yeah. Wait, you mean you're not going to be overrun by just Corrado owners?
There's a couple Corrados.
I'm sure there are. It's a great car too.
They usually have to bring like 3 of them. So in case you got to bring your parts Corrado with you. But yeah, there's some plain stock, perfectly OEM'd. There's some wild stuff, and it's cool, and it's a very choose your own adventure kind of event.
Is it mostly still Volkswagen Group?
I would say vast majority.
Do you get many Audis?
Yeah. A lot of Audis. Yeah, we did this year. One of the former guys passed away, unfortunately. His family was here with his TTRS and got it wrapped purple and had a really cool thing down on the ball field. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Again, everybody's welcome as long as you don't suck.
Yeah. Well, probably we're saying then it's not like so Nationals is here, and I think the Carolinas chapter was very. I saw Chris wave his hand when we were talking about attending Wookiees. He was just here too. But like very much inspired by that event was in trying to do this here this year, and so yeah, Wookiees.
It's a cool event.
And what time of year is it typically?
April. Yeah, like third weekend in April. So you get either like 90s, or so this year it was great. Weather was great, mid 80s, low 90s. The year before it snowed.
Oh.
So I didn't do a whole lot of driving. I just hung out here most of the time, and that was about it.
So this area around Fontana, and I can't see it on camera, but like this area here around Fontana, like it's kind of a little bit summer campy. It's like not campy, but summer camp like, and it's cabins. It's a hotel.
You can. I think hotel is the right word. So it was owned by the Tennessee Valley Authority, who owns a lot of the property around here, and I apparently is under new ownership, like recent. Like there's signs that I'd never seen before in all the times that I've been here. Yeah. So rumor has it that it's funny, we were talking about Grant, the guy with the TTRS. I think this is actually a bench that they made for him right there. You guys, I don't think you can see that, but I just caught me on the See You in April. Yeah. So here is the bench. That's really cool. How about that?
I love
my ADD has paid off.
I love the family nature of this community too. I think that's what, okay, we've all been, you and I just met today or last night or whenever it was, but like, but we've probably hung out the same people, same places, same websites, same, like, I think that's what's pretty magical about the whole Volkswagen Group vibe too, is that, right? Like anyway.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Very much like seeing your friends only once a year, and like you just saw them yesterday.
But it's a challenge too, as this stuff grows. I think that's the other side of it. You mentioned how Wookiees continues to grow and how the cars diversify. One of the things that, like, you look at other events like Long Roof Rally or Oktoberfest or whatever, and they struggle with that too, right? Like, do we just do wagons? Do we just do Audis? Do we do, because like, you start out, TT East, TT West started out this way too, right? Which is, you start out with a core group and they want to keep coming back,
right? Regardless,
right? And whether they moved on to,
they upgraded cars, or now they got a RS6 because they got a family. Who knows? But like, should they get kicked out of the club just because they don't have the car? Aren't they still just as much part of the community as they were?
Do you have any Atlases?
Yeah, well, yeah. A couple. They usually tow the car they're going to drive around here with Atlas. Next year I think I'll be driving my Touareg and towing a to be determined project. I'll say so. We'll see.
Not at liberty to speak about it yet.
No, not fully. I don't think.
No, I'm not.
I have a couple.
Nobody listens.
Yeah, there's like 4 people listening. It's fine. So, I in 2020 bought a Mark IV R32, and this was kind of right before they just skyrocketed in value. One Mark IV R32 went for $106,000 on Bring a Trailer this year, which is just a stupid amount of money to pay for that car.
That was like...
It had like 1,800 miles on it.
That was like Stinky Pete new, right? Like, it was,
well, yes and no. It had 18.
It's a Toy Story reference.
It had an 1,800 mile on the odometer, but like, it didn't look great either.
Yeah.
And plus, the car sat now for 20 years, which is not good for any German car.
Right.
Anyway, I paid $3,000 for it, so I was like, man, I'm in this car for next to nothing. So I bought a HPA turbo setup for it. The car then spent 1.5 years at the body shop getting some rust repaired. It was pretty rusted out. So I just got that car back and should hopefully have that done for Wookiees.
Cool.
I also have a Mark 7.5 Golf R, which was part of a special color package that Volkswagen did for 2019.
What color?
Ginster yellow.
Ginster yellow.
Yep.
So like the driver's edition.
Like the driver's edition and the Harlequin
yellow for Audi speak.
Yeah, different color though. It is a different color. Yeah, a Mola looks paler when you see them next to each other.
Not just some bleach. Because Jazz, I think, is Jazz Blue, which they also did on the driver's edition. We're getting really deep dive nerdy here. is Nagaro.
Yeah.
And that's straight up same
color code and everything.
Yeah. So I just assumed Ginster was.
Yeah, it's close, but like the 20th GTI they did in a Mola, and they did I think the Fahrenheit Jetta for Mark V is a Mola. I'm not 100% sure on that one. It's close. I think it is. They only did like 1,500 of them or something.
One was like
that.
A little bit orangey. I always thought I mean, I don't know. I've never looked at the code.
Yeah, I'm guessing. So correct in the comments if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
let me know. Happy to be wrong on that one.
To be corrected.
Because now I forgot what the point of that was anyway. So anyway, it's yellow.
Your car is your.
It's yellow, special. 1 of 13 in the U.S. if we really want to go down that. It was totaled at the beginning of this year. Somebody rear-ended the car. How you rear-end a bright yellow car, I don't know, but that's very likely what was going on.
Yeah, playing with her phone.
And so that one will be back in action, hopefully for Wookiees with some special coolness.
How many do they do of each color, those?
It depends on the color. So the most common color was Viper Green at 33. And this is just U.S.
Like a Porsche color, right?
I don't. It's green.
It's like a green. Like a primary green.
Right. No, it's bright, green. Viper Green. Then maybe Cliff Green, then my color. Then there's a bunch that there's like 4 or 5. There was a handful of 101s.
Yeah.
So it was a cool
project
program.
too. Probably worth. I mean, just if people don't know, is Volkswagen Megan Clauset.
Yep.
I'm saying that correctly.
You are saying that correctly.
I always am afraid.
Or if you didn't, sorry, Megan.
Yeah, but she was the product manager at Golf at the time, and decided at Audi they do Audi exclusives. So you can just order as an extra fee, but you can generally order whatever. But Volkswagen doesn't, at least in the U.S., doesn't have a program like that. So it's my understanding that the way they got around that was they just did a prism of
Yeah.
Like a little bit of everything.
So I don't know how much of the actual story's public information, so I'll kind of dance around what I know actually is. So VW Canada had done a similar program with eGolf and Golf R in 2018, and I think however all those pieces came together with their special paint shop, they were able to do it for 19 for US, which is why US cars, none of the Spectrum cars have a sunroof because it's basically the eGolf, which I guess those didn't have a sunroof either. So it's cool. There's 199 of them that were made, and it's nice to see a car that's not silver, gray, white,
German
and
rainbow.
Yeah.
I think that's the way that, well, we all know this, but for those who don't, like the way the dealer business works in the USA is they order what people buy and sell immediately, or
they're just allocated,
what's easy to sell,
and here this is what you're going to get.
And the other problem, without exclusive, it's an interesting thing, right? Because the market is really set up for selling quick turn cars, and when you have a really unique car, you might get a buyer. You might have a dealer, like literally my Audi exclusive was a California car, and I traveled to get it, right? Because it was a used car that popped up on the market and it was available. But or you can just special order it. But where I'm going with that is you need it's a different buyer, it's a different way to sell, and I think that goes against the way the kind of dealer model is.
100%. I mean, they're looking to roll cars on and off the lot as fast as they can.
And if something depreciates fast, that hurts lease. This is like the little man behind the curtains pulling the strings. But that's so if it's an easy sell, if it resells strong, then lease rates are good and whatever. But that stinks because then we're just left with German rainbow, which is gray, silver, black, white.
Yes, and
thrilling.
When those launched, if you found a dealer that had one, you could probably get a hell of a deal on it. Except the Bay Area dealers were marking them up like $15,000. You can get a deal on it because their customer base at large does not want a bright green $45,000 Golf.
Or if the internet figured it out, they would chase it down.
Well, then that's what eventually happened is the word got out, and then people started buying them. Now they're, worth whatever they're worth. There was a 91 blue, which is a beautiful color, very much like Porsche's Mexico blue. That went for like $55,000 on Cars and Bids earlier this year. That might have been last year, late last year, but I bid on it. Accidentally. I say accidentally only when I'm talking to my wife.
Wink, wink.
But she knows that she's not stupid. She knows how stupid I am. Did not believe me that it was an accident. But I was the leading bidder at 38 for up until the last 10 minutes, and I'm like, damn, I'm gonna have to explain to my wife why how I found $40,000 to buy this car, and then that one in the last minute just skyrocketed. By the way, if you've never watched a Cars and Bid auction or Bring a Trailer, I think is very similar. If it's a car that you think is cool, it's a lot of fun to watch because at the 1 minute mark,
it's crazy.
Every time a bid comes in, it resets another minute. So you could spend 25 minutes in the last minute of the auction, and it's just cha-ching,
and all you need is two big dogs bidding.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you saw that you mentioned that 6-figure R32. I have a friend who just did he does cars on Bring a Trailer, but he just did they found effectively a barn find low mileage E36 M3 white coupe, right?
Nice.
And 30,000 miles, whatever it was, and they impeccably detailed it and prepped it for freshened everything. It hadn't been driven much, and I think that car just did 85 a couple months ago, and all it takes, or then other cars will go weak, right? But I mean, I suppose any auction, but again, two big dogs, and those two sites, and maybe what's the one that Chris Harris has won too? They seem to get the big dogs that come out to grab whatever pops up. So if you have this unique thing, a lot of those end up on
You said your friend works or has a company that does the auctions.
He started doing this full time now, right?
Dude,
he's done
that's how to do it,
right?
Though I don't remember the name of the company, but there was a Spectrum Golf R that went up, and there's a guy that has an Instagram channel Spectrum only who tracks and follows this to the nerdiest it's way beyond the nerd level I would ever go to. So I have a lot of respect and admiration for Adam and how detail oriented in the tracking he is. But whenever there's one on those auction sites, him and I will jump on Instagram Live and just kind of watch it with the community.
Right.
And the company this guy used, the pictures were amazing. They write the article, they take the pictures, they deal with the auction. I don't know what he paid, but he probably got $7,000 to $10,000 more because he used them than he had done it himself.
Well, that's kind of what my buddy's has just recently quit his day job and started to do this.
Him, man. That's awesome.
Right? But he's impeccable about the photos, impeccable about and it's largely he doesn't have a dealer license yet. He's not buying cars, so he's literally just doing it for clients. People with a car come to him, list it for me, and
he
same
just
thing.
Facilitates
it's going high. But that's the other thing.
awesome.
You get the username on the platform, right? And because he's I don't want to throw too much on his game, but like he literally, for a dealer recently had a collector car. I'm not going to say what it was, but it was a bit of a roach. And he was like, "Look, I will help you. Like, you can contract me to help you with the listing. It's not going on my account."
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So he needs to protect his own
right.
own user
and
channel. That makes sense. That's a wild world, that Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer has.
Well, there's another guy who he's in New Jersey. He sold us. I don't know if we do the sweepstakes every year. Shout out to the sweepstakes. We're doing an RS6 and e-tron GT this year. E-tron GT Prestige this year.
How do people enter that?
Oh yeah. Well, go.rallyup.com / Audi Club EV sweepstakes, or just go to audiclubna.org and click on the sweepstakes link. But yeah, you choose RS6 or e-tron GT, and it's a fundraiser for Audi Club, and that's a big part of how we do our operations and our budget each year. So yeah, there's your commercial. But so Kevin with Ambassador Auto in Lebanon, New Jersey, they do a lot of. He sold us an Quattro 20 valve swap that we gave away last year. We wanted to try doing a classic car, and moderately successful, right? Like for us, it wasn't like we were hoping it would be, because then we're going to start buying the coolest old cars.
Yep.
And an RS2 or whatever. But we'll see. Maybe we go back to that at some point. But anyway, Kevin he surfs. He has like P-Car Marketplace, which isn't just Porsche nowadays, or like he'll put cars depending on the site, whatever's right for whatever he has, and he's got a dealer license too. He's doing normal stuff, but it seems like that's a science, man. Just putting it on those auction sites.
Yep.
I don't know. It definitely is for the moment. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, there's some folks that have cracked the code, and it's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
it's pretty sweet. That on the flip side of that, I feel like those auction sites have exponentially raise the value of cars that maybe don't like the R32 is a good example. In my mind, there's not an R32 that's worth $100,000 ever in the existence of the universe. But
so I have a friend who he made the argument. We had this like small Facebook group on it's just like looking at cool cars we see for sale, and a bunch of friends. Are you on Facebook? I'll send you it.
Yeah, cool.
Friend, and send that to you. But yeah, he came on and he made this argument. He was like that era kid too, right? And he's like, all right, if I wanted the world's nicest R32, I could go out and I could buy one for a lot less.
Yep.
And then I have to find the obsolete parts to put it back to stock or restore it or whatever else. And by the time I do, and even remotely get close to this car's condition, I'm deeper than that in it.
Yes, that is a fair argument.
Yeah,
that won't change my mind on that. No R32 is worth $100,000, but that is a really good point, and I have experienced that personally. Yeah. So I own 3 Mark IV R32s right now. The first one I bought, I paid $11,500 for it in 2018. In my technician heart, paid like $7,000 more than a Mark IV was worth.
Right.
But I feel like in the universe of what they cost, I got a fair price. That black one that I bought rusted, I paid $3,000 for, and then I bought a red one earlier this year that I paid $7,000 for. None of them are great. Like the black one will be awesome, but I'll be $50,000 into that car by the time the turbo kit's in and the paint job's done. And Lord, I haven't even considered wheels and brake upgrades or any of that stuff yet. I'll probably be over 50 actually.
It seems like as we move towards EV, like there's this kind of like musical chairs mentality where like the music's going to stop and there aren't going to be enough chairs, and when I want to make sure that I have a chair when the music stops, right? So like all of anything, and even like you look at like some of the Radwood era cars, like some cars that like nobody ever appreciated, period. But
now they're just fawning over because they're just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
and some of that is like are now the people that can afford that car. Like that's the car they always did want, but they couldn't afford it, right? Like the whole middle life crisis buying a car thing to me is the stupidest thing ever, because you've always wanted the car. Yeah. Now you just have maybe put yourself in a position where you can actually buy it. It's got nothing to do with turning 40 and having this existential crisis of your existence or anything. It's going to be really interesting with Volkswagen dropping the manual on the GTI worldwide. Yeah. What does that look like no one should be surprised about it.
No.
But I think it's just such a deep wound to those of us that are enthusiasts. And, even if you're driving this high-end Audi now, that's essentially a supercar. a lot of people got started with a 5-speed GTI.
Right,
you know?
and they're buying up the ones that are still around that are, if you can find one. The enthusiast in me hopes that, like, you watch, like, Porsche and the 911 in particular, right? Like, they're granted they're charging an ungodly amount of money for, like, cars like the GT3, but like, for those who are willing to, like, that it still exists is the relevant.
It's an option.
Yes.
To those that can option it out.
And part of me wonders, like, could you get to the point where there's a business model for Volkswagen would be the one going back to the Lego nature, right? Like, you have MQB, which is the transverse architecture, right, that's shared across the group. And would it make sense to, obviously it doesn't at the moment, but would it make sense at some point to have a manual thing that's like a GT3, but a GT3 for the people,
a GTI or a Golf R
folks.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's such a nuanced topic. When you talk about EV, you talk about enthusiasts. We look at losing a big piece of auto enthusiast history in the GTI, and there's a lot of us that are like, look, I'm probably not going to buy a new GTI in a manual,
right?
But that doesn't mean I'm not sad that it's not going to exist.
Right.
I want that for, like, my kid's 9. I would love for her at some point to want a manual GTI that's not 35 years old, you know, at the time. That is modern and new and has all the safety stuff built into it. And
that's the key, right? I got a 16-year-old at home, and she's 17 now, and we're working on our license. But same thing. Like, now I'm like, you sell yourself up to, like, okay, my car has, like, pre-sense and level 2 autonomy for, like, these things that, like, does she need those? I didn't have them, but, like, I kind of feel like I need them now. And, like, if I'm gonna put her in a manual, I'd still love to teach her the manual, but I kind of want to get a car that's got that stuff and it's relevant to today's technology.
It's a tough balance as a parent, and, like, maybe it's both. Maybe it's like what I would do, which was I would now anyway would have both. I have that car that has all the tech and is packed with stuff and is super safe and has emergency autonomous braking and all the other stuff, but I also have a car that's maybe a little bit more raw, a little bit more engaging, and it doesn't feel quite so numb. I mean, my Mark 8 Golf R is the fastest car. I don't know, the Audi might be a little faster, but it's such a piece of junk, and it's completely gutted because it's a race car, so it's horrible to drive on the street.
Can we dig into that for a second?
Sure.
We had we just did a story recently on Dirtfish. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And their training.
I love watching their content. By the way, it's so fun.
They're awesome. What they do in the community, I really love you, Dirtfish. But we just had somebody go through their training program. She came away wanting to be a rally car driver, not surprisingly, right?
Yeah.
It's a ton of fun.
How do you not?
But she was talking about, like, maybe try and find a B5 or whatever else, and it's like, I hadn't thought of B8 as a rally car. You think of it as, I don't know, it's bigger or whatever, but, like, as I'm listening to you talking earlier in the podcast, like the Sport Diff, that's probably a pretty amazing chassis for if you want to dig into that. Is that...
If you can find it cheap enough, which I think
there are enough out there.
Now you can, I don't know that
or
you're
A5, S5 too. Like, you're not just,
I think that it's such a capable platform out of the box, and, like, the platform's been sorted. Yeah. There's mods to the stars. It's still a B8, so everything Q5 should essentially bolt. That's what I did. I just put Q5 suspension on it.
All right, tell me more about this.
There's a place semi-local to me called Lifetime Audi, which they sell used Audi parts. I'm sure most of everybody listening knows about those guys. Awesome dudes. Highly recommend buying from them if you can. Did I get a thumbs up for a plug for a sponsor? Yes.
Carolina's chapter sponsor.
We're out here paying the bills,
great
friends.
Folks. He's got a ton of, on his B8, got a ton of Lifetime Audi parts sourced. Yeah, no, they're great.
This is a legitimate story, though, so, like, we're not having to fluff this. So I talked to them, and, like, I know the B8 platform a little bit. That's not my specialty. Actually, when I was teaching VW Audi repair, we had a B8 class, and I had an Audi co-instructor, so I had a lot of documentation about the B8. But then there's also that thing where, like, will it really work? And I never say yes unless I've done it myself or seen someone do it, like, firsthand. No offense to the internet, but I don't take the word of the internet. Just cold. I know, it's wild.
So weird.
I know, I should start.
Especially commenters.
So I messaged them, and I was like, hey, do you think this will work? Can I take a Q5 suspension and put it on my S4? And they're like, probably. I'm like, probably is good enough. So, I don't know, $200 or whatever it cost me to buy springs and shock absorbers, obviously they bolt right in because it's all B8 stuff. That lifted the car about 1.25 inches.
Did it? How's your track? Isn't it wider than that? You're in an S4 right now.
S4,
an S5.
yeah.
Because I think S5 is the same track as the Q5. It doesn't poke too much, or no?
Well, I have now big tires on it too,
Okay,
so like that would be out the window anyway.
Right.
I have yet to install because the next level of lift is going to require some body modification. That frankly, I'm just kind of lazy and I don't want to do it. I purchased B8 lift springs from H&R, so the Q5 suspension brought it up 1.25 inches. This should give me another inch.
Are these H&R Q5 lift springs?
Q5 lift springs.
Okay.
So it, in theory, should give me another inch of lift over what I have. It may not work out quite to be that. No, I haven't put them in yet. So the reason I haven't put them in yet is I'm at the maximum amount of droop before the tire's into the quarter panel and the front of the rear. So I'm going to have to cut that body line. I'm sure there's other suspension geometry things I could do to avoid that.
Right.
But at full droop, I wouldn't be able to put the tire on if I put those lift springs on. So I'm going to have to cut about 1.25 inches out of the body.
When you say droop, are you talking about like you're going to experience compression when you're out running, so you're trying to plan for that?
Yeah, so I'm going to experience this way. So when the car's up, like if you lift the car up on the lift, instead of that wheel coming straight down, it swings forward. So what I would have to do is I could do it and it probably would be okay on the course or whatever.
Right.
But I would have to compress the suspension, put the wheel on, and then decompress the suspension. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to cut the body because that's probably way more fun than that. I also believe that will put me in a place where the travel of the shock absorbers won't be long enough. Now, they are Q5 shock. I'm also like thinking through this in my head as I'm talking about it. They are Q5 shock absorbers, which should technically work with those lift springs. But there's another company called like B2B Fab, I think, that makes spacers. They do a lot of Atlas and Tiguan lift kit stuff. Yeah, they're awesome guys.
Yeah,
those
are totally
such good guys.
His dad might be my favorite.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like an old Amish farmer.
Yeah.
And just like the nicest dude on the planet.
With a ridiculous collection of like air-cooled and like Porsche tractors.
Yeah, he brought one out to that show we were at. So that's like in my plan. It's just once you start cutting the body, I mean, look, there's no going back on this car at all. Most of the interior is gone. It only has front seats, dash, and a little bit of carpet. All the rest of the back stuff is out. So it's obnoxious to drive.
But you're competing in it.
Yeah.
What?
So it's Rally Cross. So it's just a local chapter. Nothing. I won a magnet for winning fastest time. So
cool, man.
And the problem for me is because I have so many other things going on, I don't get to go to as many events as I would like to. So I'll never win like a points event and get a plastic trophy.
Yeah. No, I'm curious about it because like I know enough about American rally to be dangerous, but we've been obviously following Leah and Lucy Block and their activities and like and seeing it more and seeing some other people in this space, like in this family, right, who are out there and running. You can run older cars. You can run, right? So taking a B8 and trying. One of the amazing things about rally is you can go and do these races, and you don't have to have some LMP or some crazy race thing. Something like what you've created works fine, or maybe some people with much less than that, right? And still go and compete. So like the B8, to me, the B8's interesting to me that you're doing this because it's like. It's new enough to have really interesting drivetrain. It's got better weight balance than say the B5 that she was talking about potentially using, and so the engine's a little further back. You've got the sport diff. You've got like it's a fascinating and parts availability.
Yep.
Right. So
you're not chasing down some rare thing that you can't get anymore.
If you errantly cut fenders, you can go.
Lifetime Audi. They got hundreds
Lifetime Audi,
of them.
and then it's not as rare like an Quattro box flare. Like it's
And I mean, I don't track the B8 prices too terribly close, but I imagine you could probably get a decent B8 for $10,000, maybe less. You know, if you want to put some money into fixing it, quite a bit less.
Yeah. The trick to that, well, I keep using slang too with the sport differential is started with B8, but Audi uses it, and it's probably not terribly dissimilar from what's in the current RS3 and Golf R, but it's like a hydraulic clutch in the rear and computer controlled, so you can overdrive the outer rear wheel, and that gives you throttle on oversteer effectively. You don't have to flick it as much.
It's wild. If you've never driven a sportive car, like my Mark 8 Golf R, like you mentioned, has that, and it's such an interesting feeling to be in a Golf R and come into a turn and know, like, instead of waiting to come out of the turn to jump on the throttle, you can jump on the throttle mid-turn. Right. The car just does, it's so fun. It does this like little back end wiggle, settles, and just you're gone. It's so fun.
I've yet to drive one of those new, like, Mark 8, if you will. Yeah. Right? Like the RS3 or the Golf R.
MQB Evo chassis, I think is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm sad the S4 or the S3 didn't get that diff, by the way.
Yeah.
It was kind of a bummer for
I
the
would
S3.
have loved, if I were a product manager and didn't have a budget to worry about, S3, I would have done, like, the GT3 Touring in the S3, right? Like the Golf R's manual, the diff in the rear, right? Because my beef with Mark 8 is I don't really like the controls and the interior.
That's a lot of people have that beef.
But the A3 S3 is pretty fantastic. So like to do like RS3 is cool and fast as stink. That's your GT3 RS, right? Yep. And then but the GT3 Touring is the one that like the nerds want, right? And that's where I think an S3 with a manual and that diff would have been
a little more analog, a little more connected. Yeah. No, not the what are they calling it? Like the virtual cockpit experience or whatever, where you have no buttons. Yeah. Which, having owned a car with that for a year and a half now, unfortunately for the car, I think it got way overblown how bad it is when they first launched it. And a lot of the... How can I be diplomatic about this? A lot of the people that reviewed it didn't really give that a fair shake.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of car reviews.
Yeah.
These people have a brand new car that's got less than 5,000 miles on it for a week, right? They never learn any of the systems. They never.
And I know there was one in particular that I'm thinking of that the reviewer was very disingenuous about the fact that they had an early production European one, which is a little bit different. And so a lot of the complaints that they had were completely because it was the actual one that they had. Now, that's okay. You still have it. Review it as is, but I didn't feel like they were very forward about the fact that, hey, in production, a lot of this stuff is probably going to be different. Now, the steering wheel's not going to be different, right? The way the car drives is probably not. But the thing everybody was complaining about is the lack of buttons, the infotainment quirkiness, which mine had issues. It still has issues now. They weren't genuine about the fact that it was such an early production. I drove a similar one to that was reviewed, and same thing, I locked up the infotainment system because I wasn't patient enough. I was like, why won't this work? Why won't this? Megan's like, can you just let it boot up? I'm like, no. And we had to reboot the whole car to get it working right. Yeah, it was funny. But now, after you spend about 20 minutes using it, it's fine.
It's funny. Software is like it's such a thing now. Like you look at like obviously Tesla and having over-the-air updates and things like that has really kind of changed the game. And I know at Volkswagen Group that's a big part of it's delayed cars, right? Like that's why Q6 and Macan aren't out yet, and but you have.
And that's not new either. The software updates have delayed cars for the last decade.
No, I know, but like I think what's weird now, or what's different about it now, is I think they've learned that they can't just put it in the hands of Bosch or one of the OEM suppliers, but they have to have their own. And because now so that everything can work with each other, right? Because everything is so synchronized.
Well, and that's why Tesla has such an advantage is they don't have to go through 900 different approvals to get software. They can just do it. Yeah. And then if it doesn't work, they just do it again and not have to go through all these approvals.
They don't have the legal department or the PR department or the other things. Like, on one hand, I suppose that's an advantage. They can be they're the first player in the market and they can move faster as a result. But on the other hand, you're kind of their development team, right? As an owner, and that's.
I think Tesla owners like that, though, right? I assume they would.
Some do.
I don't know.
I think in their early days, yes, but like
it's become the common. I mean, how many white Model 3s do you see on the road? Right.
That's where I was at. So we have an e-tron. My wife's car's an e-tron, and I was at a. This isn't the only time this happened to me. But like you go to I'll be at like Electrify America at a charging station. And, like, I've had Tesla owners approach me and be like, can I see it, right? So like, you show them the car and like, oh, this is like a real car, right? Like
so they don't even feel like it's a real car.
No. Well, I mean, their own, right? They look in the Audi and they're like, oh, this is like not like nice. Where I think that's where Tesla leads in some really interesting ways, but they also, because you're at that level of development. All right, well, let's jump back to Lifetime Audi parts.
Lifetime Audi, yeah.
Lifetime Audi parts.
Yeah,
No,
that is where it's just so the other reason I brought that up too. That's also where I got all the parts for my manual swap on that same S4
on the B8.
They had an
Did
S5.
you get your Q5 suspension components there?
I did, and somebody at a rallycross, one of the driving instructors was like, "Hey, can I drive your car?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, it's a giant piece of crap S4. Do whatever you want."
Yeah.
The guy. So imagine you're like at a mall parking lot, and that is how close cars are parked. So
Right.
I was parked on the right. There was a Honda Civic parked on the left. He goes between my car and the Honda, gets in my car, cuts the wheel, hits the gas, and smashes into the Honda. Didn't probably move 4 feet
Yeah.
and just destroyed my headlight, fender, hood, bumper. Yeah, it was pretty bad, really, for like parking lot speeds. Doinked up the Civic. So I also had to get a headlight, a bumper, fender, maybe not the hood actually, but I had to get all that from them. Got my Q5 suspension from them, and then they got an S5 in. We were kind of waiting for them to get the right car,
Right.
Because I wanted to go there and film pulling all that stuff. So they got the S5, they sold the engine. I went there, got the prop shaft, got the transmission. It was the same axles. Got the shifter stuff and everything, and left with a manual swap. So.
I think, like, yeah, obviously, the dealers have their parts business and, but I think especially for, if you've got, it's funny now, like, one could argue B6s are classics now. Yeah, maybe we're getting to that.
As an owner,
Yeah. So for that reason, like guys like Lifetime, there's such an asset to the community because it keeps these parts in circulation that may not be. I mean, they have plenty of modern components too, but the just parts that are obsolete. And or if you want to try something like wackadoodle, like doing a Q5 suspension on an S4, like that's a reasonable way to approach it.
You spend $200 versus $3,000 just to see if it works.
And lifetime warranty. And they give a 25% discount to Audi Club members.
It sounds like you're a fool if you're not buying from Lifetime
Why
Audi.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, is there a little bell? Do you guys have one of those like cha-ching things? But like, we do joke about that, but legit, they are awesome dudes.
No. And I'm not here to mess on them. I do get. Yeah, I try not to shill.
Yeah,
people
this is genuine from the heart, though. I mean, I really
that's
do
what
love
I mean.
those guys.
It's legit. I'm not.
Yeah. And despite that, it sounded like a 4-minute commercial.
Yeah.
They're great guys, though.
I don't even know. Well, probably Lifetime Audi parts. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Figure it out. Google it.
It's an easy find.
It's in the Carolinas. Yeah. In North Carolina.
Be careful. There's a lot of imposters out there, and so we actually.
Oh, should we get you on mic to tell us what?
Could, but I just let them know. Like, don't look them up on Facebook. Try not.
Oh, got it.
But that's a good point, though, about that weirdness, because we see it in the VW community, too, where all these, like, rogue accounts will pop up and people get screwed because they're buying something, friends and family with PayPal, like an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, I got scammed for $300. Like, well, yeah, you did. So make sure if you are searching Lifetime Audi, you're not
we know that Lifetime Audi has had some impersonators, so definitely want to make sure it's them.
The real deal. Call them up on the phone and be like, hey, I need some Audi parts.
Right. So have you ever had an impersonator?
Like
legit being you?
I don't think so. Oh, yeah, on YouTube, yes.
Really?
It was last year, maybe. It was really bad, and they would take my picture and then put like humble mechanic with an underscore at the end, where if you were just looking at it, you couldn't see it. And then they would be like, hey, you won the giveaway, click this link. And then they would want like $150 to like release the payment. And unfortunately, a couple of people actually got, and like I felt horrible because like they did it thinking it was part of like our community. But like, I mean, I hate it, but I also don't feel responsible so much.
But, no, I mean, it's not you. It's just somebody.
And of course, the big channels don't care about that, like YouTube and Facebook. They don't care about that kind of crap. It's not costing them money, so what do they give a damn about?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Whatever.
Be safe in your internet searches, friends.
Yes.
Careful what you Googles.
The web is not the innocent place it was when trolls were just people
just
who lacked self-confidence and wanted to make fun of people.
And your phone is always listening, so be careful. You're
going
to get Lifetime Audi ads on your phone right now.
No, joke. Do you know Rico Abramson?
Yeah.
So Rico he did what's the show that's up in Vermont? He did that show and he was, I think it was when he was regional for Audi after sales. He was headed to, I think, Ohio. I'm in Pennsylvania, so he's like, I'm just gonna drop. He had that Scirocco. He's like, I'm gonna just drop my Scirocco in my trailer at your place, and then bug out to Ohio. And I think he was towing with like a Honda Ridgeline, which was like, oh, you're towing with a Ridgeline, right? Like that's the truck, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the Honda pickup truck is. And so I was like, oh, it's a tow. Like, so he's unloading his car, and we're talking about his tow hitch. And like literally the next day, I'm getting like tow hitch ads for Honda Ridgeline. Like what?
Kurt ads all over your feed.
It was so creepy, like how Big Brother it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's how the internet works, right?
It is.
I don't want to give up my privacy, but I keep talking about weird stuff on my phone.
That's why you get all those girls and the crypto bots.
Now,
it's starting to all come together
it's
now.
Right now, and now I'm gonna get more crypto bots. I want a crypto bot who's also lonely. I think that's what I'm looking for.
Just kind of merge those two worlds together.
Because I feel like they'll work harder for getting me crypto.
Yeah.
And be a nice companion for, going for drives or hikes.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right there. Yeah. Right there.
Yeah. Okay, so you've competed with this thing enough. So the reason I ask is between, Talia doing that piece Dirtfish, thank you. And Dirtfish is actually, they run, here's a plug for Dirtfish too. Yeah. They don't even sponsor club, but we love them so much. And they offer these training programs year round for learning rally, and they're out in outside of Seattle, I believe.
Yeah, you can do 1, 2, 4-day classes or something like. You can get levels. Deep into that with those guys.
And they have women's only programs. We're looking at maybe potentially doing that as well.
I love that.
Right? So we actually sent her out during their women's conference, and then she did one, I think, the rear-wheel drive program the following day. Whether it's that or whether it's like people being inspired by Lisa and Lucy Block, doing, kind of stepping in and stepping up their careers, this is definitely something you can walk into, and it's one of the few levels of competitive motorsport that's so easily approachable.
Yep.
And so I guess I am fascinated by the B8. I didn't exactly expect us to dwell that much on this conversation.
No, but it's like, it's such a fun car, out of the box. And again, all the mods have been sorted. Whatever you want to do to it is available.
Yeah.
This one's 200-something thousand miles on it. I can't imagine a world where it was well maintained in its life.
And you paid like $3,000.
And I paid $1,500 for it.
$1,500.
So now, most people aren't going to find that good of a deal, but
under $5 is probably easily attainable.
And if you really wanted to, sell off some of the parts and make some of that money back, you likely could. It's such a fun car. And so I do autocross and rallycross with our local. There's a couple of local car clubs, and the autocross side is a lot of fun, and I prefer that. It's just a little more engaging for me, and they do more, so I get to do it more.
Yeah.
I also autocross a '99 Miata because everybody has to autocross a Miata at some point. But going into it, it's a much bigger event, which leads to a much more intimidating experience if you've never done that before. The rallycross on the other side is a group of maybe 30 people, whereas a normal autocross is 120. Maybe 30 people. There's a couple of dudes that have some property local, so you just roll up to this field.
Is this a North Carolina phenomena, or is it a national thing?
They are an official SCCA club.
Okay.
I don't know what your local club would look like, but this is just a group of dudes and some women that just go and thrash, and I think there's actually one next weekend, maybe the weekend after. I got to roll the fenders of the S4 though, because I did a little jabby of tire into fender in the front end. But
you're gonna go RWB on that thing, just with the Sawzall?
Well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I might just hammer the crap out of it. In a really janky fashion.
I wasn't recommending Sawzall.
I mean, it's a nibbler. You got to get the air nibbler.
He's an artist, but I'm going down a rabbit hole here, and it's got nothing to do with Audi. But do you ever wonder, do they coat that? When you're done, they're going to drive through water, and it's going to turn to rust, and it's a 911, which has to be.
I assume they do.
Hopefully so.
We'll just pretend
they
that
never
they
do in the video. I wanted to see somebody do the video where they.
Yeah.
It's less about the beauty shot of hanging out.
That's not what most people want to see, though. Most people want to see that sexy, put on the thing, finish the Titan. Nobody wants to see those gritty details.
Not like an old cranky man, but being it's going to rust.
Yeah. How dare you?
No, dude, I have a 964 Singer, and this guy, all the 964 people hate me, but Singer and RWB can keep buying those things up because those of us who have them are like, it's just,
cha-ching. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not cashing it in, but
but
it's more dear to me because
yep.
and I can afford to fix it when it breaks.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Rallycross your B8. It's super fun. There was a dude with a new Corolla the last time I went, like the brand new Corolla GR or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Out there in the dirt.
I don't want to. This is an owning podcast, but that's a pretty cool car.
I completely agree. I have yet to drive one.
Yeah.
I was trying to get a friend of mine who does a lot of work with Toyota. I was trying to get her to convince her people at Toyota to let me do a video comparing that and the Mark 8. But nobody would go for that.
I might know somebody at Toyota PR.
I don't think they'll go for it. Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
What's the worst that can happen?
He's ex-Audi.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll have to drop him a note.
Yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. He but no. What's all right? So that goes back to what I hope that at some point the Volkswagen Group decides to do with a small car product, and you can charge more for it, right? Because the GR is not a cheap car.
No.
Right. It's and I think that's where I'm going, right? Like, there's your GT3 Touring for, like, enthusiasts at a different price point than the nosebleed section that the GT3 Touring lives in, right?
And the people are gonna they'll pay it, like they're gonna pay that premium.
Somebody's
for the
paid
car
six
they
figures
want.
for an R32 Mark IV, so there's a market out there. Yeah, it might be that one guy, but there's a market out there for like would it make sense to have a GTI product or an S3 product that's?
I think especially when we look towards the future of Volkswagen and I assume Audi's commitment to being
EV.
all or heavy EV, if you could put out this very limited Halo product. I mean, those Golf R, what was it, the 333 or the 888 or something, that recent one that was like 75,000 euro or something, they sold out in like 8 minutes or something really, really dumb. None of those numbers are probably right, but it was low production, very, very expensive, and sold very, very quick. So there is a market for that, especially when that product becomes even more special and more limited. I mean, now you could just go get a GTI with a manual transmission. What happens when all the GTIs are EV? How much more special is a new manual GTI or S3 or whatever it is?
Should we go down the electric rabbit hole?
I feel like we're
dancing around.
I feel like we might as well
just
leap off that cliff.
We'll get on soapboxes, and this is not for me. I don't know about you. I'm not anti-EV.
I'm not either. I'm not either.
And I recognize most of the market's going to go there. Yeah. So you want to?
So I'll just give you my take on EV.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of different ones. One, I think they're cool.
Yeah.
I think they're very cool cars. Audi's EV line is gorgeous and awesome.
Yeah.
Porsche, same way. The ID4 doesn't really do it for me. But when you look at like
GTI looks cool.
The ID GTI, the ID7 has potential to be a very cool looking like S5 kind of type vibe. I don't think, and this is very nuanced, so if someone else has a very strong opinion about it, one way or the other, that's great. You should have your own opinion about it. It's such a complicated topic because there's so many pieces of the puzzle, from beginning of life to end of life, to where does the power we generate at this charging stations come from, to what is Electrify America's situation today versus
or the
5 years from now, or the infrastructure in general. Are we going to have this delineation between what Tesla charging looks like and Volkswagen Audi Group charging looks like? We don't know the answer to any of these questions. My big thing is I hate the idea of losing a true enthusiast car in either the GTI, the Golf R, the S3, whatever, the TTRS, whatever it is. I hate the idea of losing that and producing a car that is essentially an appliance, because that's never been what, to me, a VW and an Audi was. It's never been an appliance. That's what you buy a Toyota for. A great car that will always get you from A to B, that's boring as hell to drive.
Well, if you're the type of customer who, it's funny, like that's what we always, when we were doing Vortex, and people are, I'm sure you get this a lot. You get asked, and they know you're the car guy in the space, right? What kind of car should I buy? And we would often be like, well, what are you looking for in your car, right? Because if like you just want rarely if ever have to go to the dealership, just want it to get me A to B, whatever. Toyota,
get a Camry.
Toyota makes a great product. This is all I'm saying nowadays. Again, pre the EV shift too, and kind of like in that context, and like because Toyota takes this really interesting tack too in their positioning on EV. But Yeah, anyway, like you said, get the Camry, and it'll be a great appliance for you, and it will get you there.
And that's most people. Like
Yeah.
that. Sometimes I think us as enthusiasts, me
Right.
included, we're delusional about how small of a percentage the automotive industry we actually are.
Right.
Most people want an SUV that they don't have to think about, that they get in it, they start it up, and they drive the kids to school,
And it's
and they
comfortable.
come home,
Yeah.
and their phone pairs to it, and they can listen to whatever their tune skis are.
Good
and
dealership
that's
experience.
It. And that's
Yeah.
what they don't care about. A manual transmission or a
Right.
special color or all the things that we are so passionate about, they don't give a crap about.
Right. And I think that's where I'll get on my soapbox for a second on EV, which is more, there is definitely, whether it's political based, whether it's just people don't like new things. And like, when you see, there's such a shift, right? There's such a sensory input with an ICE car, the sound, if it's popping flames, Aventador or whatever. But like, but there's not with EV, and so we're still learning that. And I find like whether you're consumers like us, enthusiasts like us, or consumers buying those appliances, or development team and marketing teams inside these car manufacturers, there's this sort of like, often the car enthusiasts who are like, I want no part of that.
Right.
And then what happens then is you end up with the people who aren't enthusiasts, who have the big budgets to, because there are big budgets right now to develop these EVs. That market is coming, and that's undeniable. So like, but who's left developing those cars are the people who, let's just make an appliance and whatever. And I have yet to see, and I mean, short of like a Rimac or whatever, and I have now driven one, so I don't know. Maybe it's an appliance too. I doubt it. But I have yet to see a really solid enthusiast product.
Yeah.
That's also an EV.
And that's also like attainable for most people, because I would argue that like the Tesla Plaids are probably pretty enthusiast oriented cars, at least from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
But like that's $100,000 car.
So all right, so let's define this. What is enthusiast? If you're making the product, because I don't know that where I'm going with that is like,
that's a good question.
EVs
I don't think I have a good answer.
Stink. I saw somebody post on Facebook. He's an anti-EV guy, a buddy of mine, but he's anti-EV, and so he always posts dopey stuff, usually saying how terrible they are, and so I take that with a grain of salt. But this was I thought it was a really apt analogy, which is, and I'm not trying to harsh on him. We all have our own beliefs on this, but yeah. So because he's gonna, I wasn't just busting on you, dude. But no, the argument was, it's like a microwave. It can cook a lot faster, but it doesn't taste like my grill, right? And I wholeheartedly agree with him, and I think that's where Tesla is like, it's fast. It's irresponsibly fast, arguably, because people are not trained for that level of performance. But like, it's not something I want to get in and go out here on Tail the Dragon. And I mean, I'm sure there are some that come out here. Don't get me wrong. And regen braking is a really interesting new tech when you think about, like, as I'm coming up in that RS6 last night, I kind of want to hammer, and if it were daytime I would, but it's going to be a really expensive day on brakes and tires, and right where with the EV it's still going to be an expensive day on tires, but regenning is such an interesting way to manage torque and weight. Like, I don't know,
it's almost just a completely different strategy behind what you're doing.
So if you're making it, I have my own opinions on this, but if you're making an enthusiast product that is electric, what is that?
If it were me, I would take, and this may be like a cop-out of an answer, so forgive if that is, but I would take the cars that are already deemed the enthusiast car, right? For me, it's easy because it's a GTI or a Golf R, and I would incorporate that same vibe, the same thing that draws the people to that car. I would try anyway to incorporate that. And instead of filling it with gas, you're plugging it in.
Right.
How do you do that? I don't know, because a lot of what we do love about the car, and you mentioned it, is the sound, the feel.
Right.
I like to rev the engine because it's
sensory feedback.
The 2 liters really don't sound that great, but
it's sensory feedback regardless.
But it's some kind of level of feedback. So
and it's not coming out of a speaker.
Right. And I don't like that. I mean, the sound actor goes off. That's the first thing I ever do on all this new stuff is kill the sound actor. In fact, I turned it off on my yellow car. And then someone asked me if you could turn it past 100%. I'm like, I don't know. That's a really great question. So I tried. You can't. But then I forgot to turn it off.
Go for some like Rockford Fosgate.
put a sub under the hood, a 10-inch sub under the hood.
Really
bass, feel it.
Bass that knocks people over.
There we go. That's our EV mod market right there. I was driving and I'd forgotten to turn it back off, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with my car? And then you flip through the modes and cut the sound amplification off, and I was like, oh, I forgot to turn the sound actor off. So yeah, the short answer is I don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
The best I could come up with is, what is it that people love about the enthusiast car of their choice, right? Whether it's a TTRS, a GTI, a Corvette, a Mustang, whatever it is, how do we incorporate that into an electric vehicle that still gives them the same kind of dopamine hit that they're looking for out of their gas car?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that like you go to like the purest of the pure, like the Miata, right? Like you mentioned with the 964, or like an early GTI or whatever. That dance of like rev matching and whatever. Like I think we're past that as far as like I don't know if somebody's going to reach that far back in enthusiast engagement, but like I don't personally make a motor or elements of the car that are less refined and make noise, right? So an electric motor can make noise. They're making them very quiet because appliance, right? And so, but the point is not that it's unrefined. The point is there's an instinctual, audible understanding of the vehicle. You have almost a I don't want to say relationship, but maybe as you're out here on tail, right? Like that's one of the sensory inputs that you're having of where your motor is. You might not be able to look at the tach because you are where you are, but it's just something that engages you more with this machine. And so whether it's that or whether it's weight transfer, like shifting, like with regen braking, you could do stepped. I don't know how. I'd love to try and figure out an input that's like kind of like a manual transmission, right? But like in Audi, I don't know about the ID4, but in the Audi you have stepped regen too in e-tron and e-tron GT. I haven't been in the Q8 e-tron yet, but Q4 has, so ID4 may as well. It's MEB based, right? Like it has this. It's not full one pedal driving, which is like one.
Yep.
Yeah. But for those who don't, one pedal driving is like when your foot off, you modulate, I guess, with a pedal how deep you're going into regenerative braking, which is effectively torque braking. Which is, so if it's like going around a corner in second gear and having to reach up. I know we chatted about this earlier today, so we didn't know this. I'm revisiting this in the podcast. I don't know, but like going up to third, but then you're back in second for the next corner, and so you can do all of that without ever having to shift anything and infinitely accelerate. And the moment you need to, you're off again. You're at that full second gear torque brake almost, right? So it's actually, when I played around with the Q4 in that mode, and that's not even full on pedal in the Q4, but it's closer than what we've seen in the other cars. And it's not like the Q4 was this amazing. Like, it was pretty well, the suspension was pretty well tuned, and it was much lighter than the other e-trons. But like, put that now in that ID GTI or like a little RS3 Sportback, Delta Integrale kind of concoction, and you're going, or a Mark IV TT, whatever. I think you can make a driver focused car, and yeah.
That was not someone with our group, by the way, in case you all heard
GMC
that.
But like, you could make an enthusiast engaging car, and I think that's what we haven't seen it yet. Nobody's done it, at least in an even remotely. And by even remotely obtainable way, I mean like anything under what, 150 grand, and not like I'm out there buying, but advocating. But like even in like a 911 GTV realm, there's not really anything of that nature.
I feel like out of all the companies that exist in the car world, Volkswagen and Audi have the opportunity to really crack that code.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm kind of surprised they haven't.
Well, but that's okay. But that's the trick. Let's go back to the appliance discussion, because you're like, you've got the people developing product for the masses. Your German Rainbow Gray, crossover, family hauler, daily driver, whatever's, right? And that's what MEB and likely PB is the new like Q6 Macan, the higher end electric. But like, what the first and foremost, that's where they're going to sell their volume. So they're going to develop it for that. But like, then you start, if you develop a less refined motor, or you develop a probably if they develop some sort of transmission, because there is no transmission, right? But if there's some sort of like
gearbox,
synthesized
I don't know what you would actually
control.
call it. It's like a CVT for your EV.
Sort of, right? Like, remember those Nissan Muranos with like the stepped?
Oof.
Or actually, Audi had something like that, and I think the B7 era in the front wheel drives.
Yeah.
And it was stepped. It was stepped. I guess in the
to give you the feel
in the
'cause
CVT.
people complained about. I heard they had to change program. This may
Yeah.
be a myth, but I heard they had to change programming on it because people thought their car was broken
Maybe
because it
I
would
don't know.
never shift. My car doesn't shift. It's not supposed to.
Yeah, maybe so. It wasn't really a well adopted thing,
No.
and Audi moved away from it. But like, but regardless, I mean, you could probably do that in everything, and even like the family haulers. But I'm waiting for them to get. Maybe it's because we're so early in it, but I'm waiting for them to get to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, your standard Q crossover.
Our
is
bills
this.
are paid. Let's do fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Now let's do that small motor at each corner to like do next generation quattro. And what can that do that the sport diff couldn't even dream of?
Right.
Because now you've got a motor at each corner and you've got this controllable in air quotes transmission thing, right? That like that all of a sudden you're not going to see that in say a Q6, but you might see it in an RS Q6, right? And that's where I'm hoping with Porsche especially and Audi, Audi Sport GmbH and the R business at Volkswagen, you hope that there's enough business at Group to say, okay, it makes sense for us to develop this hotter drivetrain that's authentically. It's not just a Model S Plaid, right? It's not just a faster Q6 with a bigger motor. I want something that's. I don't really care about being fast. Like most of these electrics are so ridiculously fast.
Right. They have plenty of power.
Right. It's more how it handles and how I can control it and engage with it on corners like Tail of the Dragon.
So are you saying we're in for a boring ride of EV for a little bit, and then it might get cool eventually?
They're going to start with the good sellers, right? That's why everything's crossover right now.
Yep.
I'm really curious about 718 because that's going to be the first kind of like mainstream-ish sports car.
Yeah.
And I hope they don't get it wrong. I don't know that Taycan was the first one.
Right.
But I don't know that it's a great car, but I don't. It's heavy. It's battery tech. That's the other side of it. Until we get more energy dense batteries, I almost think like I don't care about range. Give me a shorter range. You got to get that weight out of the chassis. There's no way. No matter how good the suspension is.
I heard we're still like 5 years away from like the proper battery technology. Like it exists, it's out there, it's in development, but we're still
solid state and
5 or so years away from any kind of product launch for that.
Yeah, but here's the other, because that's the other misnomer. I think everybody says like e-tron because it was Audi's first. If you're in optimum temperature and it's just you in the car, you're at 220 miles range. And what a lot of people say is like that's laughable. It's too short. Look, we've got almost 100,000 miles of e-tron between my wife and I experience at this point, and like 90% of the time we're charging at home. She's got a 70-mile a day commute. It is perfectly fine for that. I've taken the car to Wisconsin, to Maine, to Vermont twice. To it's not that. As the infrastructure comes up, it's fine. That range is great, but I can't outrun my bladder, and so like I don't. 200 is fine. Maybe if I'm buying like a Miata or a GTI or whatever, give me 100 miles range. I would rather
give me the option. Let me have a
mode,
mode
a lightweight
where
version.
I can go. Okay, I can my high fuel, my whatever high efficiency mode where I'm for me to drive here is 6 hours, 200 and whatever miles. I stop. I could probably make it here on one tank of fuel, but I am very paranoid about running out of gas, so I don't. But if I have a high efficiency mode and I can just cruise here and make it all the way here on one charge, and then I get here, I charge, and I can drop it in sport or race mode or whatever and go rip.
The problem is still the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's. I mean, it's a funny thing. Like, have you driven like a Taycan or an e-tron GT?
I haven't ever driven either one.
The weight is so low in the chassis that it's so flat, but you still can't outdo physics, right?
Right.
It's ridiculous fast. It's a parlor trick fast, and the Teslas are faster. So like, I don't even know. It hurts my head. It makes me want to puke. Right? Like,
This is miserable.
I do it once. Haha, that's funny. But like, do it 3 times, and it's vomit comet, right? Like it. And so like that's where I don't need it to be that fast, and I don't know. It's still you get into like tight corners and you're killing tires and you're killing brakes.
Well, that's happening on ID4s just as normal SUVs. They're allegedly anyway eating tires. So we'll see. I mean, ultimately, here's how I look at it. Nothing I say or do is going to change the trajectory of any of this happening. So I can either fight it, which doesn't do me any good.
Right.
I can understand that adoption is real and it's going to happen, and I can ride the wave and hopefully capitalize on it. And all while doing that, not forget all those really cool, dope cars that I've had before, and try and position myself and the community in a way that, like, maybe you have an EV, and I think that's cool. Like my wife's is a perfect candidate for an EV. We just don't have one because they're expensive, and I'm not ready to pull the plug on one.
They're actually getting, I don't know about maintenance, but they're actually getting quite cheap.
Yeah,
but well, it's soft.
Well, they're getting quite cheap, but now you're paying 8% interest.
Yeah,
to finance one.
And you have to those early EV components you need to be careful of and whatever. But the other side of that is too, like, part of me hopes that what I worry about too is when you see all this volume of money and development and whatever going to EVs, that they're like, okay, we're done with ICE now, and we're not. The infrastructure has grown so much since 2019 when I bought my first e-tron. But there are also so many more cars on the road.
Right.
Like I think we're still in, like, or I'm jumping around here, but like GT3 is, I keep going back to that's my unicorn. I want everybody to, like, every car manufacturer to have that product, right? That yes, it's maybe ICE isn't your RAV4 whatever nowadays, but it's, you know, your appliance, but for like the specialty, like, enthusiast thing, there's enough. Okay, we've offset enough carbon now, like the couple people out there in like a, you know, 2030 GTI, ICE GTI or RS3 or whatever, can still go out and have fun, and we can still continue. For the people who are really ardent about it, could still continue. But what I worry about is, like, you get to manufacturers, like,
they're going to chase the dollars.
Well, you look at Volkswagen Group. I think the only people who are really committed to staying ICE are Porsche with the 911.
Yeah.
Beyond that, like, there's a very, like, hard commitment. Government's behind trying to, like, encourage them to go there. I'm not going to get, you know, conspiracy theorist on who's forcing what, because I think there's a lot of market motivation for them to go electric too.
100%. Yeah, there's
cost of components,
super nuanced, very deep subject of all the layers that we at the level that we exist in don't know about, and it's tough, and that's why, like, to just flat out say we're going to be all EV by X year. I don't believe, but two, I think is kind of irresponsible.
Well, the other side of it too is like, as long as there's this sort of rejection of EV by a certain element of the market, like, it's going to make that. This is where it gets complex on the transaction part. We're going back to, like, the lease rates and everything else. Like, if they're soft cars and all you're selling is EVs and they're soft on resale, now your lease rates are just going, you know, skyrocketing and everything else, and you sell less cars, and that weakens the brand. So, like, I'm hoping too with Group they can stay diverse, right? Like, I'd love to see Audi do, like, let's just focus on the Daza. Like, it's in the past hasn't been enough torque signature for the bigger, heavier cars, but you could offset that with hybridization and still have an ICE product line within the range. And that to me is very, well, any of the Volkswagen Group portfolio, but that, except maybe Cupra, that's more like in keeping with the brand and its technology, not just necessarily being ICE, but it's embracing. It's not Audi trying to chase Tesla and being something it's not, but it's Audi being Audi, and Audi has always been a leader in technology, whether that's Quattro or EV or whatever. Anyway, that's a huge soapbox. I apologize for going down that road.
No, but it's a good point, and you know, all we can do is kind of champion for what we believe in, and buckle up, because
that's why I'm hoping they're listening. They're like, that's brilliant. We should have Charles and George run it all.
Take our ideas and do cool stuff with it.
Maybe pay us a commission or a free car or something.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, it's fine. 2029 GTI, just send it over.
But my thought is, you know, like the higher ups, who's ever making the most important calls is going to be like, you know, I watched this podcast, and word on the street is this is the way it's going. So we were at ground zero.
Today, mark your calendar. Today's the day that Skynet fell. I don't know. I want to believe that we'll still have those really awesome enthusiast cars.
Can we pause?
Yeah.
I mean, Charles, thank you so much for.
I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun.
But both being here at this event, but personally too, we wandered a bit. Like, went done some really wonderful rabbit holes. And,
hopefully the crowd enjoyed it. I know I did. So.
Yeah, this might be a two-parter.
Oh like, man, I feel honored that I got on a two-parter. Heck yeah. That's awesome. But I think now is a good place to wrap and do what we all came here to do. Go drive. Yeah. So do they have to, like, subscribe to a thing? Do you got to do
we put it
don't
on.
Forget to hit that subscribe button. That's a YouTube thing, I guess.
Subscribe, YouTube, whatever. Audi Club NA.
Donate to the Audi Club. Enter the raffle for the
if they lasted whether 3.5, 4 hours, whatever we went into this, right? And you're still here. You really you think
we should be paying you? Actually,
these podcasts don't make themselves though. So play the sweepstakes. But no, seriously, thank you so much for being here and part of this event. And look forward to seeing you out at other events in the future. And you may have some Audi Club members reaching out to you for more information on building a rally car, man.
Hey, if you want, I can show you the hackiest way possible to do it.
We should get that in the magazine. Let's do that.
Okay.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm cool with that.
Maybe not this next issue. I'm putting one together right now, but yeah,
I got time.
we'd love
Let's wait till it blows up, and then it'll be a real good article.
There you go. All right.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.